Hi, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Me again. I wanted to give a lesson on Parashat Korach. So, just a little timeline. Last week's Parsha was Shlach, and it ended with the sin of the Merag. Well, it didn't end, but the sin of the Meraglim happened in last week's Parsha, and the punishment was to travel in the desert for a total of 40 years. And the 40th year seems to officially happen in Parshat Chukah, which is next week's Parsha. In Parashat, it's noted that it's the 40th year. And now we have Korach, and it's kind of like, when does the story of Korach exactly happen? It could be that it happened in this time while they're wandering for 38 years, but the exact timing is not very clear to us. So we're at some point post the sin of the Meraglim, while they're wandering. I'm not quite sure if they're towards the 40th year or not. And so I wanted to look at the beginning psukim with you on Parshat Korach. So here we go. Vayikach Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kahat ben Levi v'Datan v'Aviram b'nei Eliyav v'on ben Pelet b'nei Reuven. So we have Korach, tells us his lineage. Okay, he's from Kahat, and he's a Levi. And we also have Datan v'Aviram, and it tells us their lineage, and they're from Reuven. And what do these people do? Vayakumu lifnei Moshe, they get up in front of Moshe, ve'anashim mi b'nei Israel, and people from b'nei Israel, presumably like important people. Anashim often can mean a description of important people. And we have chamishim u'matayim, 250 people, nisiei eda, kriyei moed anshe shem. Okay, so now all this gathering, okay, so we have a following. Korach has a following, and they are approaching Moshe and the leadership. Vayikahalu al Moshe v'al Aaron. So they are gathering. Literally, that can mean like on Moshe and on Aaron, which translates to mean against Moshe and against Aaron. So right away, this is going to be an antagonistic kind of approach. Vayomer alehem, and they say to them, right? This is not a conversation, right there. This is the beginnings of a rebellion. Rav lachem, ki kol aida kulam kedoshim. So what is their argument? Everyone in the nation is holy. Betocham Hashem. We all have Hashem in us. Madua nasu al kahal Hashem. You have so much power you have. Rav lachem, you have so much, right? What is this, Moshe and Aaron, that you have all this authority and all this power when all of us have Kedusha? Vayishma Moshe hears this, Vayipol al panav, and he falls on his face. Okay, I'm only reading till here. There's obviously more to the story. And there's a challenge that's going to happen. Whose karban is going to be accepted from Hashem to show that whether or not you are the actual leader or not. And so there's a pushback Korach is starting against Moshe and Aaron having so much authority, pushing back on them being chosen from Hashem. Okay. So some of the things I want to think about is how Korach approaches Moshe. And I want to think about this gathering. How did this group come together? And I want to think about other times. So that's three things I want to do with you. Other times where people from Bnei Israel approached Moshe. And in keeping with my message from last week, I don't think, just a little clue into where my message is going to go, I don't think that we can never go against authority. It's just a question of how. Okay, so first I want to look at a Rashi on Pasuk Aleph. And there's a lot to the Rashi, and I only brought the beginning. There's a pretty popular Rashi. It's pretty well known. And if you don't know it, I'm excited for you to see it. And for anyone who is going into sixth grade, or you came from sixth grade, you definitely did this Rashi. The Datan ve'Aviram is a Dvar matchil, right? Because we just had in the previous slide the pasuk that it mentions Korach from Shevet Levi, and then we have a description of Datan ve'Aviram. So Rashi says, "B'shvil shehaya Shevet Reuven sharoi b'chanitam teimana." So it's telling us about where Shevet Reuven is when they camped in the desert, that they are neighbors lekahat ubanav hachonim teimana. So I brought a picture that if this is Kahat, Shevet Levi is in the center of traveling in the desert. And Levi has three kids, Gershon, Kahat, and Merari. Gershon, Kahat, and Merari. So this is where Kahat was settled. Okay, this is a compass. Okay, so this is where Kahat is. Anyone from that child of Levi is there. And then Moshe okay? And Aaron and his children were on this side, okay? That's like even the most holy people. Okay, so Kahat is over here, inner circle, and all the tribes are around, right? Yosef is split into two, so that's why we still have 12 on the outside, even though Levi's in the middle. And where do we say Datan and Aviram are from? Reuven. So what is Rashi pointing out? Rashi is pointing out that Kahat and Reuven are right next to each other. Okay, that's what they are. They are neighbors. They camp near each other. Okay, Kahat and Reuven. So Korach is from here. Datan and Aviram are from him. And I put this in bold, that the faction nishtatfu im Korach, they got involved with Korach b'machlokotav, with his argument, a machloket, with his argument with, or his rebellion against Moshe and Aaron and the leadership. And then this line, oy l'rasha, oy l'shcheno. So if someone is not a good person, Russia has evil inclinations, or it doesn't make the right choices, that will affect their shcheno, their neighbor. So I don't know which one started it, but if someone from Kahat, i.e. Korach, is starting something, a neighbor like Datan and Aviram might rub off from that. Or Datan and Aviram that they have a reputation of being not the best at rule following and keeping in the spirits of the nation, maybe they rubbed off on Korach. I'm not sure exactly which direction it's going. And these other two people could have been affected also, people that came from Shevet Shimon or Gad or other people from Reuven. But according to Rashi, it's not so random that they are near each other. A lot of times we're affected by the people that are near us. So Rashi is pointing that out. And I wanted to share a quote that I once read that says, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You could think whether you agree with that or not. You could discuss that at your Shabbos table, but it's something to think about. You are affected by who you surround yourself with, what kind of friends you make, right? Who do you choose to spend your time with? If you're choosing to spend your time with people who are generally making good decisions, so then that's going to rub off on you. And if you're hanging out with people who are not making good decisions with what they do in camp or school or outside of school, then that will rub off on you as well. And so with Datan and Aviram being near Kahat, that seemed to have rubbed off on Korach. It doesn't mean that we always are affected by that. Sometimes we have a strong enough will to swim against the stream and go against the grain, but maybe sometimes we don't. So as not to have the risk, let's not go against the grain and just surround ourselves with people who will make us make good decisions. And it seems that Korach and Datan ve'Aviram, that was a negative relationship, and the way that they are coming against the leadership. Now, I want to also think about Korach is from Levi. He already has specialness. He's in the center over here next to the Mishkan, but there was more that he wanted. So I wanted to think about how they came to Moshe and Aaron, right? I don't think that's wrong to go against the leadership. It's just how you do that. So I wanted to look at 3 times where people, there are many more, but 3 times that come up in the end of Bamidbar where people go against the leadership. So we have Korach here, okay? And it uses language, I'll highlight for us just to move things, right? It uses language that they gathered against, right? So Vayikahal al Moshe, v'al Aaron. And then it says that Moshe fell on his face. Okay. Benot Slefchad are the daughters of Slefchad who recognize that they should have a portion of land, that because their father died. And just because there are no boys, why should they not be able to inherit their father's land? He didn't sin in a way that would make him not get it. And maybe we'll go into detail when we get to this Parsha. They come up in Pinchas, but they're praised for how they approach the leadership. They didn't agree with the decision to not be included. So they come close. It says the daughters come close and they stand lifnei Moshe and lifnei Elazar. There's no discussion of that they gathered against. That doesn't happen here. And after they make their point, Moshe brings their question to God, which does not happen here in Korach. Okay, now one other example is Reuven and Gad when they want land on the eastern side of the Jordan. They want to settle and not get land inside Israel. And so we have that they come vayavo. Okay, Vayomru El, and they talk to all this leadership. Okay, Vayomru again, because it seems maybe there was a pause and Moshe didn't respond to them. And then it says that Moshe now talks directly to them. So the way I kind of see this is that to me, this is the ideal. The ideal is them. But note Slavchad, the way they approached Moshe, very respectfully, not against or on them, and had a succinct argument. And Moshe actually didn't know how to answer and brought it to Hashem. And that's another question. Why didn't he know? But he went to Hashem. I think this one is medium. I'll give this one like a half. Okay. They get like a half because they get a response from Moshe. But if you do a further analysis, which maybe we will do later on, which I think I have a video that I'll share later on, is that Reuven and Gad, they needed to flesh out their argument more. And they were missing some of the marks to prove to Moshe that they're still a part of the nation and that they are not trying to abandon the mission of getting to Eretz Yisrael. Moshe was also worried, if you stay outside, is that going to be convincing others? And they met back and forth to come up with a plan to give them that land, but to help be a part of the nation still. So I give this one a chetzi, and this is the ideal. And Korach obviously is not the ideal. This is an X because you're gathering against. You're not even trying to dialogue. If you are concerned that you think you have too much power, even though Korach isn't set up more than the rest of Bnei Israel because he's from Shevet Levi. Shevet Levi does have some other privileges that other tribes don't. They have extra work. So it makes me think that Korach did not even approach this right. And it's something to think about, right? It's not to say that going to a leadership is wrong. It's just, what do I do if I do have an issue? How do I do it? And Korach did not do it in a way. This was a rebellion. This didn't get him what he needed, and it shut him down. Famously gets consumed by the earth. This is not the way to approach it. But to me is the antithesis, really the opposite, in how they respectfully challenge the leadership, and they do get what they want in the end, and women in their situation would be able to inherit. I hope you enjoyed this discussion, and I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.